Minasan konnichiwa, Ari desu. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. That's right, you guys. It is already my November study recap. I swear I can't believe we're already in December. November has gone by like this. And today is already the 11th video in this series of study recaps for this year 2024. So if you guys haven't seen the first 10 videos on the channel, I guess you should go and see them, because definitely you would want to see what I was up to before November so that you understand what the hell I'm talking about, because I don't explain myself every time. And so as usual for these study recaps, I'm going to tell you whether or not I completed my monthly goals for this time, the month of November. I'm going to tell you about everything I have studied in Japanese, in Mandarin Chinese, and where I am with my linguistics courses. So without further ado, let's get started. The first monthly goal I had for November was to finish reading all of the books I had listed on my to be read list for the Halloween reading challenge, which was going on Instagram and hosted by my good friend Co-Studygram on her account. And so this challenge was meant to span from the 1st of October to the 15th of December. And I think I had listed about 13 to 14 books. I think it ended up being about 15 books. And I actually completed that list way in advance than I originally thought I would. So that was one of my goals for November, because I had only, I think, 3 books left to read at the start of the month. So I made it one of my goals to finish reading those books first, so that I would then be able to start reading other books. And so I'm flashing on the screen right now all of the books that I have read for the challenge. This was an amazing challenge, so I have completed it very in advance. Really helped me read much more than I usually would, especially at this time of the year, because there is a lot going on between September and December every year. There is sort of a trend in my life, so definitely it means that I read a bit less usually. But this year, thanks to the challenge, I actually read more than I usually read. So I was very happy about that, and it also helped me get into, the Halloween mood. I specifically chose books that were very Halloween themed or close to a Halloween theme, so it really helped me with the mood as well, with the atmosphere. All of the books I read for this year's challenge were in Japanese. I hope that next year I'll be able to incorporate Chinese books as well, but for this year I stuck to Japanese books. So this goal is completed. The second goal I had for the month of November was to finish the second course I was going through for my linguistics online study. And this course in particular was the course offered on the Future Learn platform by the University of York, called An Introduction to Sociolinguistics, Accents, Attitudes and Identity. Let me read you the blurb of this course. It was about learning how sociolinguistics explore the relationship between language and the expression of personal, social and cultural identity. It was an amazing course. I did finish it. I'm very glad I went through it. So this goal is also completed. And finally, my final goal for the month of November was actually a very big one. Towards the end, I wasn't sure I would make it, but I did make it. And it was to finish reading my Yume Shōnonbun Kisohen book in Japanese, which was a book filled with essays on very specific topics that come up at the Japanese university's entrance exams usually. I read this book specifically to help with my reading comprehension of academic Japanese, to also help with specific vocab, so I did a lot of vocab extraction with this book, and of course to elevate the quality of my own essays written in Japanese. I made a whole video about this on my channel if you're interested. And so the goal I had for November was to finish the first phase of studying with this book, which was only to read it first, which I did. So this final goal is also completed, which makes it a 100% completion rate on my monthly goals for November. I'm very happy about it. Let me drink some coffee. I need the coffee this morning. Difficult Monday mornings. Alright, so putting on my glasses for this next part, because I'm gonna be reading on my screen quite a bit because I don't want to forget about anything, guys. So we're gonna start with my Japanese recap, my Japanese study recap. For Japanese, regarding the active studying I've been doing in November, I have been covering 2 textbooks in particular. So one of them being the book I just talked about, the Yomidake Shouronbun book. And so, like I said, using this book as a study resource in November looked like doing intensive reading on it, and I completed reading all of the essays, really focusing on trying to understand 100% of it, looking up all of the vocab which was either new to me or which I wasn't sure about, which I did. This marked the completion of the first phase of studying using this book in particular, and so I will go through the second phase probably next year. But in November, another thing I did, which I also wanted to mention to you guys, was to do a test run of the second phase studying on the first chapter of the book, which was about globalization. This looked like me taking notes of the key ideas, the key words as well, the ones that I wasn't sure I would remember off the top of my head. In the end, my objective is to be able to discuss these topics using the right words, talking about these topics in the right way, either in the oral form or the written form. The test run I did was to check how long it took me to take the notes, what kind of notes I needed to take for those notes to then help me when I would talk about the topic, looking them up as I was talking about the topic. So I will be focusing on that during phase 2, but that will be for next year. So I hope that makes sense, and this is what I did with this resource in November. Alright, the second resource I used in November for Japanese was the second book in the Ryugakusei no Nihongo series. You've seen this book a lot already on my channel. You've seen the first book as well in the series a lot on my channel. So this is a book meant for international students who want to come study in Japan at university specifically, and this second book is specifically about composition of essays and or any other academic writing in Japanese. I completed the first part of the book in November and started on the second part of the book, and there are 2 things I wanted to tell you. I covered a very, very interesting chapter 4 in November, which was about the proper use of the particle ga and the particle wa, and this was extremely interesting. I am always happy to go back to basics like that because they're always very easy to confuse. So I'm always happy to review the rules, especially in this context of, trying to write really perfect sentences for formal writing in Japanese using ga and wa correctly. So very interesting chapter. And then the second thing I wanted to say was that second part I started is really interesting to me because it is all about writing each part of your research proposal in Japanese to be able to enter into graduate schools and specifically to do research, which is something I'm looking into at the moment. So it may happen that I need to write a research proposal in the future in Japanese. So I have a very specific interest for this particular part of the book, and I started it in November. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it in December. In terms of reading immersion in November, this is what I read during the month of November. I actually found 3 books, which were 2 short novels by Haruki Murakami and then 1 manga collection by Ito Junji, which was a retelling of the Frankenstein novel, and this was absolutely gold. I recommend 100% all of those 3 books. Please, if you can get your hands on them, read them. They were amazing. And then finally, another thing to note is that I finally started reading Kokoro by Natsume Souseki in November. I am doing a whole entire vlog on the topic because this is a huge thing for me to be starting this book finally. I think I've heard about it since day 1 of me studying Japanese, so finally being able to sit down and read this book feels amazing, and of course I am enjoying myself at 1000% with this book. So to take a step back, in November I think my reading in Japanese was a good mix between like older literature with Kokoro for example and modern literature light novel and Murakami books, for example, and also manga at the same time, manga and comic essays. I did end up reading 10 books in 1 month and then starting 3 more. So this was definitely a good reading month. Alright, so now let's cover quickly the rest of the categories. For my listening immersion, I continued watching the series The Journalist, which I started last month, so Shimbun Kisha. This is still very interesting. I'm getting a lot of very interesting vocab from this series. Also, I've watched a few of the Shirabete Mitara TV programs on the FNN YouTube channel. And then for my technical listening practice, I've used the Pivot YouTube channel once again. Alright, and finally, in the others category, I have been doing some conversation practice with ChatGPT to test myself on the oral expression for the first chapter of Yume Shorunbun to see if I could talk about this topic, so the topic of globalization, you know, making full sentences and correct sentences and like sentences that make sense about this topic. And so I practiced with ChatGPT. So it was again part of the test run, like I explained earlier. And then finally, in November, I actually started business coaching for myself. And it so happens that this coach actually is Japanese. So the coaching is also done in Japanese. So I'm getting at least an hour of, you know, conversation in Japanese about business topics and other topics every week. So that's also a nice addition to my like study environment in Japanese. So yeah, that's it for Japanese. Next up, we have my Chinese studying for November. For my active studying, I mostly used my HSK3 textbook. I am still going through this textbook. I'm taking my time with it, really trying to, you know, pace myself with it. I covered chapter 12 in November, so I didn't do much with it, but it was, you know, a very good study session. I still remember it. But then the real focus of my month for Chinese studying was really my conversation practice lessons, so my online tutoring with a Chinese tutor from Cafe Talk. I've had 4 lessons in November, so 1 per week, and we've covered so far all of the tones. So she taught me pretty much everything I needed to know about the tones, and so I'm getting much better now at recognizing them and pronouncing them myself. This has been very, very successful so far. And then we've covered also the pronunciation of all the vowels and consonants. And next up, we'll need to cover the pinyin rules. And then once that will be done, we'll be able to do some more reading comprehension and reading aloud practice together. And then from that point on, once I get comfortable, we'll be able to start conversing in Mandarin Chinese. I can't wait. Regarding reading immersion in Mandarin Chinese in November, I focused on my Chugoko de Choto Ihanashi book. I finished the last few stories I had to read before reaching the last part of the book, and now I am finally in the last part of the book, which has 20 stories, which are much shorter, but they are also without pinyin, without translation, and without space between the words, so they're much more difficult to go through and to read, but I am very happy to be going through them. Now that I've reached the last part of this book, I'm hoping to be finishing it in December. We'll see if that actually happens, but I will do my best. Alright, and finally for Chinese, you know what I'm going to say about my listening immersion practice, because I have been watching Vicky Soup's channel like every single week. She uploads a great video, either a vlog or like sit down videos, which are amazing to help me on my natural listening immersion practice, which I'm all for. I've done that with Japanese when I was at that level. So definitely I know that this works and I can already feel it. I can already tell that I understand much more of what Vicky is saying in her videos. I love this language. I can't wait to be understanding all of it and to be, of course, able to speak it myself. Alright, on to my linguistics recap. Let me take a sip. So, like I said at the beginning, I did finish covering the second course of my curriculum in linguistics, the curriculum that I made for myself, right? So I finished the second course. It was really, really interesting. I learned a lot, and I think that really 100% of this course was targeted at people like me. Every single module of this course was more exciting than the last one. So every time I was sitting in front of my computer and opening the course, I was so excited to go through the modules. I learned exactly what I wanted to learn about sociolinguistics. It sort of crystallized my excitement for this field. I love this. This is exactly what I want to be doing. I cannot wait to learn more about it. I'm not specifically interested in the construction of languages or the history of languages, even though I will definitely learn about that and I will be happy to learn about that. But it's like background knowledge for the real thing that I want to be doing, want to be studying, or even doing research for, which is sociolinguistics, really the relationship between sociology and linguistics, and so how languages are used in social context and what's the relationship between language and everything else, essentially. This is what I am meant to be doing. So this was a hit. I'm definitely going to go back to this course's materials to make sure I never forget anything. And then after finishing this course, I started on my third course, which is Miracles of Human Language, an introduction to linguistics, offered by the University of Leiden on the Coursera platform this time, not the Future Learn platform. And this course, I chose it specifically because it has the basics of phonetics and phonology, and also syntax and semantics, which are all topics in which I need to get, basic level knowledge, because right now I'm at level 0. I know nothing about these topics, and I need this knowledge to be able to do sociolinguistics. So this is why I chose the course, and so far, it's giving me what I expected it to give me. I will tell you more when I finish it, I guess. Alright guys, and actually that will be it for today's video and for my November study recap. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tell me in the comments everything that you have studied during the month of November. I will be happily reading you guys. And as for me, I will see you in my next video on the channel. Bye bye! Matani!